Hello, I'm Dr. Paul. How you doing? Welcome to another podcast weekly. I am traveling, but in my travels, I'm heading away or am I going to? Now, these are the things that we can say that we're often heading to something or we're going away from something. That's why I took the picture of me driving and traveling. But what I want to ask you in this podcast is education training. Now, you know you can reach me. We can watch Bridges Live every Monday at 8 p.m. with Ms. Hope Ann Dyer and Ms. Ashley Johnson, CEO of Just BU Magazine out of Houston. So, education training. You know, I've been thinking about this, and I've asked a couple of people, what is the difference? What's the difference between education and training? So, I think nationally, globally, we have been trained, and that's meaning conditioned to do or to be. Now, before I go there, education's learning something that you may not ever use, but the joy of just opening up the avenues of the mind, right? Accessing parts of your brain. Training is so specific. Like if I was to build a fence or a birdhouse, I would have to learn how to cut the wood, dig the hole. That is training. Yes, it becomes knowledge because you're able to use it. So if you're not training, are you learning? Right? And if you're not learning, then what is education? And I'm always curious to see what your take is on this, because I believe thoroughly that we've been so often conditioned into what to do, how to do it, that we are being trained to be. And therein lies the fault lines. And what I mean by fault lines, because like fault lines of the earth, there are cracks and crevices, and there's different pressure that separates the expanding and the contraction of the earth, and that's what and that's what the fault lines is. So I'm not looking at fault as more of it's not to use the words of right and wrong, but a fault as in a crack in the earth's core. So the fault lines in our lives between expanding and contraction, creating these crevices. Through training, we are being formed these lines. Education doesn't form lines. It just opens up into the universal action, meaning it keeps expanding, right? Because we know the universe is expanding. We realized that from the Hubble telescope when we start looking at the stars. We thought the earth was stagnant, and then we realized that it is expanding, right? So education is about expanding for no apparent reason, but also to just keep expanding. Now, in that expansion, there is energy. There is the process of the matter and formation. And that does create. But it's not creating because of what you are wanting out of it. It just is expanding. Now, education just expands. Now, it does form something, and it will create something in its expansion, because that is the travel of the mind. Okay? Training is an expansion, it's just contracting, right? And it just keeps creating this separation back and forth, the ebb and flows. So when we're doing things, when we're either going to or coming from, the question is how are you educating yourself in the process? It's curious. It's a piece. It's not just about what do I get out of it, but how is this expanding me? And then we know that it is, because we know life's an energy. We know life's an energy force, but I'm not going to get into that. So I just want to get into education and training. Now, the process. When we are processing in training, we're looking for application. Even in the martial sciences, it was more about education, and we use that education in the process for application. But we're not doing specific application, because that is knowing what could come. And as you go back into the universe, there is no stagnation about what could come, because things will come. That's just, this is theoretic. We just know that it will come, but there is no time for it to come. It just, things will form from different adhesiveness between, chemical forms or hydrogen and nitrogen and stuff like that. But so in the martial sciences, we first have to develop the education of expansion. So in our lives, when we learn how to drive, and I'm doing this because I'm driving, is that we're learning the tool to use to do. Now, the roads you're on, we get to use the training that we did to understand how to drive on the roads or how to drive in the weather. And these tools become perfected or defined, right? They become perfected or defined. They're never. It's never about the expanding of the driving technique. You just become better at what you're doing. That's it. So training becomes so concrete. And then when we're training, how does that create view, perception, emotion? Right? I talk about emotional education. Emotional education is about expansion. It's not about training. Because if you train, then it's something specific. So I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm glad you listened to Dr. Paul Podcast Weekly. And I hope you share this with friends and family. But ask yourself the question, am I daily? Am I often? Am I educating myself, or am I constantly training? And if you're constantly in training mode, are you training for the new, or you're perfecting something that's the old? So, enjoy your week. I will always contact you back. You can always contact me. And life is about the living sciences. And I hope this helps you educate. Meaning, I hope this helps you expand. And you get to ask yourself these amazing questions. But don't just ask yourself. Try to break it up to see where you are in it. See how you feel in it. Because those are the things that are important. And those things are important. And they're important to my life. And I'm glad I'm able to share it in your life. So, thank you so much. And you have a blessed day.